Well, good morning, everyone. Look what Chip Vasquez has done. He's brought some Panthers together once again. It's really good to see some familiar faces who probably haven't been at the Weslaco High School in many, many years. And how about a big round of applause? We have our JV and freshman team here, Weslaco Panthers, so they can learn a little bit about Chip Vasquez. So welcome once again to Weslaco High School and this special ceremony. Chip Vasquez was someone who left his mark on this world. Today we will hear stories, we will laugh, we may even cry. Today we will remember him, and then we will name a building after him, so everyone will never forget him. Will everyone please rise for the presentation of the colors?
Base. Freeze that. Arms.
Everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Colors. Order. Colors. Right. Base. Forward. Arch.
Thank you very much. That's the Weslaco High School JROTC. Thank you. Do you have a spot for him?
Yes. David Vasquez too.
Yeah, I got David. Okay, well, we're going to get started with, first of all, some introductions before we move on with our ceremony. We'd like to start off with Board of Trustees, and we have our board president, Madam President, Ms. Jacqueline Sustaita. How about a big hand for Ms. Sustaita? Also like to recognize our Weslaco ISD administration, Superintendent Dr. Richard Rivera. Deputy Superintendent Abel Aguilar. Assistant Superintendent Dan Buttimer. Assistant Superintendent Beatriz Solano. Assistant Superintendent of HR, Janie Rodriguez. CFO, David Robledo. Executive Director of Facilities, Americo Garza. Athletic Director and really helping out with this project in a big way, Freddie Rodriguez. Okay. We also like to recognize some special guests who are here, either with the city or the county. Our Hidalgo County Judge who just walked in, Richard Cortez. Mayor of Weslaco, Adrian Gonzalez. City Commissioner, Adrian Farias. Precinct 1 Commissioner, David Fuentes. All right, so we will move on first of all. And so with opening remarks, we'd like to welcome Dr. Richard Rivera.
Good morning. I see a lot of familiar faces. Just curious, was I your high school principal at one time from 1979 to 1996? Could I see hands? A few of you? Yeah, that's great. It's a big honor for me to be here. I was Chip's principal when he was in high school 4 years. And again, fond memories. A memory I have of him all the time is that as a high school principal, I would be on duty at all times. I had a station there by the cafeteria. And between periods and after school during lunch, I was on duty. But from the corner of my eye, I could see he was coming, the traffic that was coming. And every now and then, from the corner, I would see Chip Vasquez coming. And I said, okay, here comes Chip. There has to be something bothering him. Something. So he would come very friendly, very nice and friendly, polite, and he would say, Mr. Principal, why can't we have an open campus? And I'd have to explain to him. And then he would say, why can't we wear shorts? And I'd have to explain again the reason. Always something. But again, I was very happy to see him. And again, he was someone I will never forget, an outstanding student. So also, during my 4 years of high school, you get to meet so many students. At one time, we had 2,000-3,000 students. So as a principal, you're out there on duty. I was very visible. I would be on duty. I would be in the cafeteria after school. So students would always come by and talk to me. So you would get to meet students. And some of them would talk to you, would have problems, would cry. They would hug you, very happy about things. They're all different. So during the 4 years, I got to meet so many boys and girls, all outstanding. But during those 4 years, you would see students, and you would know that some of them had problems, some of them were just happy to be there, and some of them were self-starters. You could tell from the beginning that they had a purpose in life. They had something they wanted to accomplish. Again, all kinds of students. And Chip was one of these. You could tell from the beginning that Chip was going to be outstanding, that he had a purpose, that he had a journey, and that he knew what to do. Again, all kinds of students, some with different problems, but Chip, again, was one of them that I just knew, his family knew, the teachers knew that he was going to be successful in life. And he was. The short time that he was here, he finished high school, he played ball at SMU, very successful, always happy, smiling. That's the way I remember Chip Vasquez. And now we're here today to honor him, to name a facility after him. I can tell the family, the athletes that are here, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, everyone is going to remember Chip Vasquez because his name is going to be on the facility. And people in 5 years, 10 will ask, who was Chip Vasquez? There will always be someone that remembers him because he made a difference. In the short time he was here, he made a difference in so many lives at Weslaco ISD. I just know that somewhere upstairs, you have Hilda Vasquez, you have Irma Gonzalez, smiling ear to ear with Chip as to what's happening today. I appreciate the family, Joe Vasquez, his daughter Sandy, and all the family for the work they did with their family and also at Weslaco ISD. So again, as superintendent, fond memories of Chip, and he will live forever. Thank you very much.
I'd like to mention a couple more people I'd like to introduce. Mr. Arena, Danny Arena, head of security is here as well. Mr. Arena, a quick wave. Thank you. And also we have the principal of Weslaco High School, Yvette Morales. Very instrumental in putting this program together as well. Up next, I'd like to welcome the head coach. Just went 10-0 in the regular season, won a district championship, by-district championship, Coach Roy Stroman.
Man, how am I supposed to follow that? That's why he's the best. That was awesome. That's without any notes. So I'm always impressed when people can come up here and communicate and talk and describe people without using notes. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get to meet Chip, but I've heard great stories from the community, and everything that I've heard has been just spectacular. We have an award, our football award, the Chip Vasquez Award, and that is given to not the best athlete, not the MVP, but a person who's a great teammate. You know when a leader is when you can make other leaders. That's when you're great. And in speaking with family and former coaches that were here, that's what they would say. You know what? He always made the people around him better. And that's something that every single kid that's up there that I want for them to understand is to be a leader is not to be a dictator. It's not to bring people down, but do it the way Chip did it, was to bring and elevate everybody up so that you can bond and play like a team. But let me get this thing situated. I know some of you guys were former players. As you guys can see, you used to look like that, because that's our freshmen and our JV and some of our varsity. But that's the way you guys used to look. So if you guys look over there, the good thing about them is our coaches do a tremendous job and our kids do a tremendous job, and they understand how important this day is. So with that being said, let me get this thing going. Ladies and gentlemen, alumni, community members, school personnel, and cherished guests, on behalf of the athletic department, it is with immense pride and heartfelt gratitude that we gather here today for this special occasion. Today, we are not just dedicating a building, we are honoring a legacy, a Panther who made this community proud. Our football complex, a place where dreams are born, shaped, and realized, will now bear the name of one of our most distinguished alumni, Chip Vasquez.
Yes.
Thank you. This honor is not just a tribute to an extraordinary athlete, but a person whose journey has inspired countless individuals, being our football team one of them, both on and off the field. Finally, an offensive lineman gets to get recognized. Finally, an offensive lineman gets to get recognized. The offensive linemen, they're the unsung heroes. You know that. I mean, for some of you guys that read the newspaper, maybe you watch Channel 5, Channel 4, you watch the sports segment. It's always the quarterback. It's always the running back. It's always the wide receiver. It's always the guy catching the touchdowns. But man, the guys that do all the work in the trenches, those guys never get any love. Well, guess what? Offensive lineman, if you're an offensive lineman, raise your hand. If you're a D lineman, raise your hand. Now, when you guys step into that football complex and you see Chip Vasquez, you know what? Man, that's one of us. That is one of us. But for some of Chip's teammates, maybe coaches that were here, back in the 80s, they didn't throw the football much. They didn't throw the football much. They might have thrown the football 3 times in a game. And I'm going to tell you one thing. 2 of those times were probably in pregame, right? Because everything was ground and pound. Everything was running the ball. The scores back then, guys, 7-6, 14-7, and then it went down to penetrations and all this other stuff. Coach Serna was a coach here, and he knows about that as well. But that's the way it was back then. Now, the state championship for DeSoto was 74-20 something. Outrageous. But back then, running backs and quarterbacks, they relied on the offensive line. They relied on them, and that was huge. You know, finally, I mean, these poor linemen, they never get any love. But there was a quote. I talked to my high school football coach, and he reminded me of one thing. He reminded me of one thing, very important. And he goes, you know that offensive linemen, they make the best husbands. I said, Coach Gomez, say that again. I said, son, offensive linemen make the best husbands. Man, I started thinking about this. I was like, I don't get you. He goes, and let me tell you the reason why. Offensive linemen are protectors. They protect the quarterback. They protect the running back. They protect the receivers. They protect other linemen. So when they start a family, they're so used to protecting. They become the best fathers. And it made sense. With that being said, we now know that the Panther Brotherhood will always be protected. On behalf of the athletic department and the whole Panther Brotherhood community, it is with great pleasure that we will forever remember the legacy of number 60, Chip Vasquez. Thank you so much.
All right, so up next, we're going to hear from some of his teammates, some people who knew him back in the 80s. And we're going to start off with some stories. And we have SMU teammate Oscar Rosales, who is here.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Coach. I appreciate the love you showed for linemen. I was a lineman, and I was recognized a few times when I jumped off sides and when I allowed our quarterback to get sacked. The coach made sure everyone in the stands knew who it was. That is true, though. You folks sitting here today, we appreciate every one of you. I had the opportunity to meet Chip in college. I played up in the Dallas area my high school years, and I met him on August 5th, 1988. And that was the year that we did not play games because the coaches, Forrest Gregg, and the group of professional coaches that he brought to Dallas thought that we would not be ready, and he was right. We weren't ready to play in '88, so they picked 1989. So that's when I met Chip, and I remember thinking, it was hot in Dallas, and we had those 105, 107 degree days. And I would look at Chip and I would say, how is it you're not sweating or hot? Then I realized he grew up in the valley, so it made perfect sense to me. But we all had an opportunity to walk on. The death penalty was terrible for SMU and for the college and for probably college sports, but it gave us an opportunity that we probably never would have had. Can you imagine? I'm 5'11", and I played 3 years, started 3 years at Division I school. That would have never happened anywhere else, and I was fortunate to walk on. And I remember in practices going through these, drills, and Forrest Gregg, if you know, he Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame coach, just a Hall of Fame person. He was the person that Vince Lombardi, that the Super Bowl trophy is named after, called the best player he ever coached. We all wanted to touch that greatness, and it's befitting that Chip Vasquez gets to have his name honored because we did touch that greatness when we played together. And nobody escaped the wrath of the coaches, and that was back in the day. And here today, I got an opportunity to meet some of his teammates and fellow students, Bobby and some of the guys that are sitting here, and also Coach. Hearing how he was, where we used to use our heads as weapons, and they don't do that anymore today. But we did it back in the day, and nobody escaped that, even Chip, right? We would be out there and we would be struggling and suffering, and they would say, next year's going to come quick, you better be ready. The Southwest Conference was no slouch of a conference back in those days. A&M and Texas, every year they were on the calendar. We had to play them. We had to be ready. And we would be getting our backside handed to us. You guys know what that's like, or you're going to know what it's like. If I know Coach Stroman, he's doing his job. He's going to get you ready. But we would be beat down. Imagine every week practicing the same person that you're practicing against. And I would look over at Chip and I would just think to myself, how can you be so chipper? Good grief. We're out here suffering and getting our heads kicked in. And Chip's over there with the most positive attitude, right? And just to give you a deeper glimpse, you're only allowed to travel so many people on away games. You can only take a certain amount. So what do? You have to strategically pick who those players are going to be. A backup running back, a couple of backup quarterbacks. In our instance, we needed a lot of backups because we played Notre Dame when they were #1 in the country. And who did Forrest Gregg pick to bring? Chip Vasquez. He brought him for a purpose. Chip was our touchstone, and he brought him to every big game that we played. We'd look on the sideline, and Chip, just like a coach, we would be on the field, and he would point out, he'd come over and tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you're getting beat out there." I'd say, "You know, Chip, I don't need you to tell me I'm getting beat. I know it." And the scorer right there is telling me too. But he would say, no, you're not getting outplayed. You're getting out hustled. You better hustle, And we would say collectively as a line, hey, he's right. We are getting out hustled. We scored a lot of points. We were in a dynamic offense, the run and shoot. They don't even call it that anymore. They call it pro set and pass offense. But back in the day, we were very innovative and we had a lot of talent. Some of our folks did go play professionally, but we scored a lot of points. Unfortunately, the other team scored a little bit more than we did. And, but we would look at Chip and he would point out what we were doing wrong. And he was right. And a lot of times, I remember I played next to the center. I was a right guard, and Chip and Matt Weisenbaker would get into it, and Matt would say, "Well, what are you seeing?" And he says, "Well, you're getting beat on your quick side. You better shore that up, And you, Oscar, what are you doing? Help him." And he was right. We would iron that out, and that's what he was. He was a coach. He had a coach's heart early on, which is why the relationship between him and Forrest Gregg was so special. And he brought him on as an employee with him in the athletic department at SMU. And I just know Chip would have gone on to great things. He was already doing great things, and he would have gone on to greater things. So it's very important that you young kids recognize that. It's not just a name on a building. It's not just a name you're going to go past or walk through. It's a touchstone. And Chip was one of those, not just a special player, but a special person. And when I think back to those days, he was solid. He was a rock, and he was steadfast. So I could tell you a million more stories about Chip, but probably some are not appropriate for this audience. Just kidding. Again, it is befitting that his name is on the building here. And I know that he's looking down now, and he's proud, and he's smiling, and hopefully he brings that energy, the enthusiasm, and that just base specialness of the person that he was to everybody that walks through these halls. So I'm thankful and grateful for this opportunity to be here and share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Up next, I'd like to introduce somebody. His family has been part of the Weslaco community for a very, very long time. His nieces, nephews, family members have been here through Weslaco, even Weslaco High School. Please welcome Richard Vaughn.
Well, it's good to be here. I now live in Pearland, Texas, about 20 minutes south of Houston, but we've been there since 2017. But it's great to be back in the valley and to see you folks. My one of my sons played football with Chip. He was a year behind him. His name was James, and James wanted to be here, but his business requires him to be there today, so he couldn't come. But he wanted me to tell you that guys like Chip were leaders. They helped redefine our athletic program in the late 80s. Now, if you'll just remember, Weslaco was terrible. It wasn't like you guys are now. You win every season and you win all these games, but they weren't. They were losing all the time. And in fact, Coach Elizardi came here, and I think his first year they didn't win a game. And next year, Chip was on that team, and anyway, they did well. And then the next year in '89, or 80. Well, it was actually 89, 88, 89, they actually got to go to the playoffs. And that was the year, though, if you remember, we didn't have a stadium because it was decided our old stadium was too dangerous. So they played every game that year at another place. But they made it to the playoffs and beat the best team in the Valley that year, Mission, and then they finally got beat by a team in San Antonio. But anyway, James says that Chip was a leader. He helped redefine our athletic program in the 80s. Chip, Chess Williams, Matt Thornton, Ricky Harton, and others like them led the way with hard work and great play, and we became a playoff team for the first time in the early 70s. Chip was also a dedicated friend, active in his church and youth group, and a very good student. And all around likable guy. That's why we all still remember him today. He left a mark on everyone he knew, and we have not forgotten him. And if you want to read something pretty nice about Chip, it was written in the SMU magazine. It was written in 2009. 2009, that was a long past the day he died. And but if you just look up Chip Vasquez, and it'll tell about his time at SMU. And he wanted to go to SMU so bad, and he was given the opportunity to go to West Point, turned it down, and he didn't like UT Austin. He didn't like Texas A&M. He wanted to be a Pony, and so that's where he went. And his teammate was talking about, the first day they started practices, he had registered for school, and he goes to see the head coach and said he wanted to be a walk-on. And the coach took a look at him. He's like 5'8", maybe 210. And he said, this isn't the kind of guys he was looking for to be linemen there. And Chick said, look, I'll take water. I'll do anything that needs to be, but I want to be on that team. And so he said, I'm only going to get to have 15 recruits this year, so you can be a walk-in. And so he just thought, well, he'll quit. Well, he didn't. He kept going. And one of the funny things the coach said, that a lot of this was by Coach Forrest Gregg, and he said that Chip would, when they were losing, when they finally started playing again and they were losing, he said Chip would start walking right in front of him, back and forth, back and forth. And so finally, it was like the fourth quarter, and they were getting beat bad. He said, "You want to go in?" He said, "Oh yeah." He would go right in. He said, if we just needed to go down and give he'd go in anytime he had a chance. And he as a senior, he lettered there, and then he went to, then he spent a year as an internship with, Forrest Gregg was the athletic director then, and so he spent a year there. And Forrest Gregg said one of the best things that happened, he said SMU's basketball team got to go to the NC championships, match, they have in March, and they got to go, and so he had Chip in charge of the bus to take the back and forth to practice. So one time they got to they were almost there, and the police stopped them and weren't letting them go in. Chip jumps out of the bus, runs down and gets right in their face and says, "This is the basketball team for the championships, and you need to let us go." And oh yeah, they did. So, but of course he left there the next year, and he worked a year in Lyford, and and he was so popular there, they made him the sponsors for the seniors that year. And so he was coach with a head coach for the junior high team, and then an assistant for the varsity. And of course, he went to see his players when they graduated that May, and that's when he came home. That's when the accident happened. And I will always remember that day for a lot of reasons. And but that day, my wife and I came for the funeral, and then we left there and we went to Harlingen, and my first grandchild was born that day. So I'll always remember that day, May 28th. And my oldest granddaughter just had her first baby this year. So now I've got I'm a great grandchild. But anyway, Chip was a great player, and you men will be honored to have him at your place there. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn, and thank you for sharing some wonderful stories. Up next, I'd like to introduce a family friend, Mr. Russell Warren.
Good morning, Panthers. It's my honor to be here today, and thank you for the kind invitation. I don't get to the Valley often, but when I do, the memories come back of my good and dear friendship. So, Mr. Joe, Sandy, Isela, thank you very much for the honor to speak today about my dear friend, your beloved son, brother, and uncle, and a friend to many here in the Valley. It's always nice to be here. Superintendent Rivera, to the administration of the WISD, and all the honored guests here today. What a great day for Weslaco. And I know for you personally, this is not just the end of a capital campaign or a building on your campus, but it's a symbol of the pride of the Panther Nation. And I don't think there was a person that would be more befitting to have the name on the building. So as a good friend of the Vasquez family, thank you. I think you hit a home run whenever you chose Chip to be honored in this way. Coach Stroman, you didn't know Chip, but I will tell you one thing. He was a fashionista, and he would love that jacket you have on. But his would be embroidered with his initials, for sure. Chip and I became great friends in the early 90s at our time together at SMU. He was a boy up from the valley and hit the big city. I'm from the ranches and the cotton fields of West Texas. We didn't have much in common, but we became fast friends. We hit Big D and hit it hard, and talk about some stories that shouldn't be told. We had a lot of fun, and if you knew Chip, he was a light above lights. He brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, and I miss him. If he were here today, he would want to say a few things. Well, let's face it, he'd talk a lot. He was a talker. But he'd certainly thank his family for their love and support. For you see, the Vasquez family has always been and always will be the heart and soul of Panther football. They're a football family. Faith, family, friends, football. It's a good description of this family. Always has been, always will be. I think he'd also say an appreciation to his teammates. Chip loved football, but most importantly, he loved the bond of the brotherhood. And so for you guys up here today, he would want to tell you, take hold of the guy next to you. There's no better friendship that will last a lifetime than what's in that Panther locker room. He would want you to know that. He would also be super proud of this day, super proud of his family and of his heritage here in the Valley. He loved the Valley. He'd be so proud to see his name on that building. I think he'd step back, take a look at it, but with great pride and humility, I think he'd also say, you know, they should have made my name a little bigger. He would. Chip was taken from this world way too soon. He was a good man. And in his death, for me personally, I needed to understand Chip's person and purpose of life and why and how we intersected. It was important to me after we lost him. And it was pretty simple. He loved football. He found his passion on the field. And he took that passion, he held on to it, and he worked through it. And then he found his purpose in life, and that was to give back to young men. That passion brought him right back to the Valley, the place he loved. So his passion became his purpose, which drove his life. And that's what I loved about him. That helped me dig through that tremendous grief that we all had of a good friend taken too soon. So I'll tell you, young men, today, there was no person that loved the front of your jersey more so than Chip Vasquez. And I hope you can find that pride in being a Panther just like he did. Chip loved football. He loved Weslaco. And he will forever be a Panther. So as these summer days wane and we all get excited for the lights of Friday night, keep that in mind, that this community was special to him. The Panther Nation was important to him. He loved SMU. He loved that badge of honor that you mentioned. That's the only place he wanted to be. But his heart was always right here in the Valley, and I know it is today. So thank you for the honor of being here. It's my privilege.
Moving right along here, we'd like to welcome 1988 graduate from Weslaco High School, Chelsea Williams.
It is good to see a lot of faces I haven't seen in a really long time. I'd like to take a quick second and recognize the folks that were either Chip's classmates or teammates. If you could just stand up real quick. Or just there's some O-line guys there too, look at that. And Dr. Rivetta, I'm very impressed with you doing this without notes. That was not something I'm able to do today, so I don't want to forget anything. Good morning. I just wanted to first thank Joe and Sandy and Isela for just allowing me to say a few words on what I consider to be a very special day, not only for their family, but of this entire community. My name is Chess Williams. I'm a classmate of Chip's 1988. I am also the adopted gringo son of Joe and Nilda Vasquez. Technically, I'm Sandy's gringo brother and your uncle by default. So I really did agonize over what I was going to say today. It's really hard still to this day. But I thought I would start out by just telling you about the first time I met Chip. He moved to Weslaco, if I'm not mistaken, in the 6th grade from Virginia. And that was kind of a novelty. We didn't have many kids that moved in from exotic places like that. But I remember what I was wearing that day, and inexplicably, I was wearing a pair of overalls. I don't know why, but I also had underneath the overalls a yellow Ralph Lauren polo shirt. Chip never let me forget that. He always reminded me of that. We immediately hit it off. He was smart, he was hilarious, and he had a huge personality. And I will say, as for smart Alex, I'd finally met my match. Back in those days, a long time ago, we didn't have any kind of organized football. So it was in the 6th grade that tackle Pee-wee football was introduced. And as it turned out, his Uncle Ray was going to be the coach of one of the teams, the Mid-Valley Eagles. Chip decided that he and I were going to be on the same team. The only problem is that there was going to be a draft, and it was basically going to be in order, and there was no guarantee that we'd be picked to be on the same team. So Chip devised a plan. He said, I want you to throw the tryout. I want you to be slower, clumsier, and less athletic than you already are. So it wasn't really that hard for me, to be honest with you. I think I got picked really at the very end, but as luck would have it, we became teammates. The first time we became teammates, really. What was crazy was Chip was quarterback back then, and he actually called some of his own plays, which what guy in 6th grade calls his own plays is unbelievable. He drew up a play one time called a tight end reverse because I couldn't catch the ball, and I actually scored the first and only touchdown of my illustrious football career that ended right at high school graduation. But I knew that kid was very, very special. From there, Armando C. Cuellar Elementary School, which I assume some of you guys went to, we moved on to Mary Hogue Junior High. Football became a lot more serious at that point, from the Pee-wee leagues to this is the big leagues. Running laps, lifting weights, memorizing lots of plays. I don't know if a lot of people probably don't know this, but at that point, Chip actually considered giving up his football career. He decided football really wasn't for him. I think it had to do more with the fact that we had guys like Juan Rodriguez that had been sporting a full beard since 6th grade, and we had to share a locker room with him that had to do with anything else. Hey, Juan. We call Juan Riggins back in the day. I don't know if you guys remember that. He's a legend. Anyway, we talked him out of it. We really convinced him, you need to stick with this, and so glad he did. My dad really loved Chip, and he strongly encouraged him to stick with it, and I'm so glad he did. We ended up having some great teams in junior high, the purple and the white teams, and we were building something pretty special. We were getting better at football, and the relationships that we had would really go on to last for many, many years. From there, it was on to high school, Weslaco High. Football back then, 3 a day, not 2 a days, 3 a day practices, if you can believe it. Am I right, Coach? Coach Harris, Coach Rambo? They used to give us salt pills before practice. I remember that. They would give us salt pills. It would be about 105 degrees, and they'd send us on our way, and you would get 1 cup of water, and you would develop cotton mouth. Within 20 minutes of walking out the door, you'd have about a 3-hour practice. It was very different. Chip started coming into his own back then. He got stronger, he got leaner and quicker, and he got tougher. Chip really was never the biggest or strongest or fastest. He was definitely the smartest player. It was like he was playing a different game. He'd come off the blocks in the center. He'd take whoever was in front of him, he'd take them out with ease. One time, he and our good friend Jay Silva got into a physical fight at practice. They got in a skirmish. It wasn't so much that Chip was chop blocking Jay continually time and time again, is just the fact that he never got caught doing it. He did every single time he'd take him out, and it just infuriated Jay. It was great. Said the good ones know how to do it without getting caught. That's a sign of a good player. So that team, senior year, we actually went on to the playoffs. Again, I think, Mr. Vaughn, you alluded to that, for the very first time in our entire lifetimes. We didn't know winning. We never knew what it was, but that team went on and went to the playoffs, which is pretty remarkable. I think it helped change the whole trajectory of Weslaco football for many years, and it helped give guys like you confidence that you could be a winner. The whole town was elated, and I think a lot of that credit goes to Chip Vasquez. From there, I certainly hung up my cleats for good. Couldn't catch the ball, and I wasn't really good blocking, so I ended up on the D line, but I was done with football for sure. But Chip did get to go on and realize his dream of playing at the collegiate level at SMU, which was pretty fantastic. You know, there was a social media about this event today, and of course I would never miss it. I think one of our classmates, Dennis Hernandez, basically said, you know, Chip Vasquez for president. Think about that. I was like, man, he'd sure be a hell of a lot better choice than what we've got to deal with right now. I can tell you that. Guys like him would be wonderful. He was a leader. He would definitely be doing something super important like that. You know, I never told this story publicly, but shortly after I got engaged to my wife, who's here, Caroline, my dad called me, and he told me he went by Chip's gravesite to share the news with Chip that I had gotten engaged to be married. And I really wish that my dad could have been here and Ilda could have been here for sure. It would have filled them with as much pride and joy as it does everybody here in this room. So I now live in Dallas, and I have for a really long time. I'm, again, with my wife, Caroline. What's been really cool is I've made good friends with a lot of people in Dallas that are, you know, played football with Chip back in the day, and they've become good friends of mine. And I tell them, you know, when they ask me first where I'm from, and I say I'm from Weslaco, and they say, did you know Chip? I said, yes, Chip was one of my great friends, and they're amazed. I'll tell you what, though, they become more amazed when I tell them I'm a season ticket holder at SMU and I'm a horned frog. That really good. It's a true story. Chip's life was definitely taken far too short, but he lived just the fullest of lives, and really every single day he seized the day. And I recommend that you guys do that, because we just don't know how long our time will be here. But he taught us, if you pursue your dreams, despite whatever obstacles you have, and never give up, you can build a legacy that will live on far longer than you. I'd like to close with saying, que viva las Panteras y que viva Chip Vasquez.
Thank you, Chelsea. Up next, I'd like to introduce, he's a 1989 graduate from Weslaco High School, also a local official here in the Rio Grande Valley. Please welcome Paul Garza.
Thank you. Good morning. Dr. Rivera, administration, I want to thank you all for this special day. It's a great moment. Excuse me, I'm Paul Garza. Just like Chess Williams, I met Chip when he first moved down here. Even though I was a year behind, Weslaco Youth Football League was just getting started, and Mr. Vasquez and my dad, Sam Garza, helped get that program going. They were the first board members. So even though Chip was playing with the Mid-Valley Eagles Senior League, I was with the Bernardo Colts in Junior League. But since our dads were on the board, we were always there at the stadium. So that's how I met Chip and started a bond with him. Went to junior high, he was a year older, but he was in 8th grade football, I was 7th grade football. We were always in the locker room. And then baseball, we were on the same team in the senior league, McManus baseball team. So we became really close. So I was always at Chip's house, or vice versa. Chip was always at our house. And back then, my dad always wore black Guayaberas. And he would always refer to my dad as Glanville, because Jerry Glanville was the coach of the Falcons and Oilers back then, and he was always wear black. So every time he'd come in, hey, Glanville, how you doing? So my dad loved that. So we stayed close, even after high school. When Chip told me he was going to SMU, I was so happy for him. He was so proud to be an SMU Mustang. He'd always keep in touch with me. Then he told me he was going to go into administration. I was happy for him as well. And then he calls me, and my nickname is Cephas, and he would call me, Cephas, I got a proposition for you. And I go, what's that, Chip? He goes, me and some teammates, buddy, we're going to go to spring break. We're going to the island. You know what? We need some more people to help pay for the room. How would you like to go, spend 2 nights? How much is it going to be? Oh, only $90 a night. And but there'd be plenty of room. Well, there was plenty of room. I wanted to sleep on the couch. Oscar was there as well and some other teammates. And so we're there, and all of a sudden we get a wild idea. We're young, early 20s. Hey, let's go to Matamoros. We're okay. I never wanted me to be left behind. So, okay, I'll go. Chip back then had a 4-door sedan. Now all these guys are mentioning the other big guys. They get in the vehicle, and there's no room for me, right? So then Chip goes, Cephas, I got an idea. Why don't we put you in the trunk? Stupid idea now. And I said, you know what, Chip? Yeah, that's a great idea. He pops up in the trunk. He gets some blankets from the room, and he lays them down. So I get in the trunk, and we drive to Matamoros. So when we get to the parking lot, before we're going to cross the bridge, Chip pops open the trunk, I pop out, and all these spring breakers are around me, and they start giving me a high five, and Chip goes, you see, I made you famous, Cephas. So and that's the way Chip was, always full of life and having a good time. And then when he calls me, he did that 1-year internship at SMU, and he's like, hey, Cephas, guess what? What, Chip? He goes, I'm coming back to the Valley. I got a gig in Lyford. Going to be a coach, a teacher and coach. Oh, I said, good for you. He knew that I was officiating. I was on a football crew, a varsity crew at the time. And he goes, Paul, whose crew are you on? I said, I'm with Gordon Kaplan. Well, hopefully we'll get one of your games. Well, season goes by, didn't get a game of his. And then football season's about to end. He goes, Steve, guess what? What, Chip? He goes, I want to be the assistant basketball coach. I go, basketball coach? Chip, you never play basketball. I know, but Lyford, you don't have that many coaches to choose from, so I want to be assistant basketball coach. So I said, wow. He was, hopefully you get one of our games. Didn't get one of his games, so back then, like they do now, varsity games, regular season, are played on Tuesdays and Friday nights. Well, he had a game Friday night. I had a varsity basketball game Friday night. After the game, went out with some other officials, had a long night, probably didn't get home till like 2 or 3 in the morning, so I'm hurt in the morning. 7:30 in the morning, I hear a knock on the door, front door. Man, I didn't think anything of it. And so I just stayed in my room. Before I know it, the door to my room bursts open, and it's Chip. He comes with a big old smile on his face, like, Cephas, guess what? I got it, man, I got it. And I said, Chip, what did you get? He goes, I got my first technical last night. I got teed up. He was so excited and happy that he got a technical. And I said, man, I think this is the only coach I've ever been known to be excited about getting a technical. And he goes, and I'll never forget that. So that's the way Chip was. That's the way, I'll always remember him. So, and then alluding to what Mr. Vaughn was saying, Chip became a student favorite with all the students there in Lyford. So I know that night, that tragic night, he was a chaperone for the senior, I believe it was a senior dancer, right? That he was chaperoning. So never forget that day after. So, but once again, I want to thank Weslaco ISD for this very beautiful day and moment and honor, Chip. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cephas. Up next, I'd like to introduce the recipient of the Chip Vasquez Scholarship, Mr. Manny Garcia.
Good morning. First and foremost, I would like to start by thanking those in attendance today, our Board of Trustees that are sitting right behind us, our superintendent. Thank you very much for being here. Also, just to bring in this special celebration ceremony for the new Chip Vasquez football complex. I would also like to thank the Vasquez family. Thank you very much for this opportunity for this special ceremony here this morning. Hello, my name is Emmanuel Garcia, but as most of my friends call me, Manny Garcia. I am a proud graduate of Weslaco High School, class of 2001. I am also a proud educator and coach here for Weslaco Independent School District. I am also a proud father to 2 beautiful daughters with a loving and supporting wife who is right here this morning with me, Elaine. You see, back in 2001 as a Weslaco Panther football player, I had the prestigious honor of receiving the Chip Vasquez Fighting Heart Award. At that time, I was just like you all. We had just finished our season. They were presenting the awards. When my name got called, I was just as shocked because I know that there was other brotherhoods there with me that were just as deserving for that award as me. At the time, I didn't know who Chip Vasquez was. Upon receiving the award, I looked into it, see who Chip Vasquez was, and that's when I found out who Chip Vasquez was. Chip Vasquez, he was a loving son, a loving brother, a caring friend, and passionate about football. He loved Weslaco High and his SMU teams. Today, the Weslaco coaching staff still has the honor of presenting this prestigious award each year to the varsity player who shows dedication, passion, and leadership, along with the most spirit and heart, which were the characteristics that defined the late Chip Vasquez. To conclude, I appreciate the opportunity that I had upon receiving the Chip Vasquez Fighting Heart Award. And also, I believe our board president was also the recipient of the Chip Vasquez Award. We both graduated together that year, so it's only fitting. I look forward to seeing other alumni, our brotherhood recipients, receiving this prestigious award, to always remember the great Chip Vasquez. Thank you very much, and always remember this: Panther brotherhood never dies. Go, fight, win.
Thank you, Manny. Thank you. Thank you very much. Up next, I would like to introduce someone from the Vasquez family. Most of you all know her, Sandy Vasquez.
First and foremost, I just want to say I'm just so overwhelmed with all of the people that are here today, and the sense of love that is in this room right now is just fills my heart. I am Sandy Vasquez, and on behalf of the Vasquez Gonzalez family, I would like to thank everyone for coming to this for this special day. This day would not be possible without the assistance and cooperation of many people. Thank you to the Weslaco ISD Board of Trustees, Dr. Rivera, Coach Stroman, where's Coach Stroman? Coach Roy Stroman, Carlos Robedo, and his amazing staff. They've done such a tremendous job putting all this together. And many thanks to those in our community who supported us and signed our petition to make this happen. Many of you guys are in this room today. Thank you very much. I would also like to take time to thank some of our dignitaries here today. I know that Carlos mentioned earlier, Judge Richard Cortez, Commissioner Adrian Farias, Commissioner, Precinct 1, Commissioner David Fuentes, and Mayor Adrian Gonzalez. We also remember today those who are no longer with us, including my mother, Hilda Vasquez, of course, my tia Irma Gonzalez. She was a longtime educator here at Weslaco ISD. SMU coach Forrest Gregg, and of course we also must remember A.N. Tony Rico. He played a huge part in my brother's life. Today we honor and remember my brother Chip. Chip passed 30 years ago in May 1994. This year we do celebrate his 30 years of his passing. Who would have thought that 30 years later we would be here today honoring him and remembering him in the naming of a building here at Weslaco ISD. I also do have to say thank you to everybody that traveled to be here with us. There are so many people that came in from out of town. We cannot thank you enough for being here. I'm so excited that Chip will forever be a part of Panther football. Again, on behalf of my dad, Joe, my daughter, Isela, and myself, thank you for being here, and remember, go Panthers.
Up next, we're going to make an audible here using a football reference. Mr. Joe Vasquez would like to tell a quick story. Please welcome Joe Vasquez.
I'm just going to say just a quick anecdote. Chess alluded and that Chip almost left football. I'll tell you why. It happened that his good friend Humberto Sainz is sitting right there, all 6 foot, 200 and some pounds of him, decided that he wanted to be in the band. So he enticed Chip to leave football and play in the band so they could meet more girls. So Chip came over and told me, Dad, I'm sorry, I'm not going to play football. I want to be in the band. The band? Are you kidding me? There's nothing wrong with the band, okay? But I couldn't understand. Then I get a call from Humberto's father. Do you know what's happening to this guy? They want to be in the band and not play football. I said, hey, I know I tried my best to get him to play, but he says no. So he came with a big old suitcase, a bassoon. This thing was this big. He was almost as big as he was, okay? So the next afternoon, the band hall used to be, the administration used to be where Central is right now. So A.N. Rico was the superintendent, and he used to walk out and check the students or whatever the superintendents do, okay? So he walks out there, and who happens to bump into him? Chip. And Mr. Rico looks at him and says, Chip, what are you doing? Why are you not in football practice? Oh, Mr. Rico, I'm not playing football no more. What? What are you doing? I'm going to play in the band. Chip, I want you to get yourself and take that instrument back into the band hall right now and get yourself in the wheelhouse. Do you understand me? Yes, Mr. Rico. What I couldn't do, Mr. Rico did, okay? So it was, but that was the kind of kid he was. I mean, for those guys that love to run sprints, right? When they would gather up to run sprints, you know, the coaches would go to one side with the stock watches, and when Chip was ready to run, they would get a calendar, okay? Because he was slow. But to all the credit in the world for this kid, there was nobody quicker between the offensive line and the defensive line. Obviously, he was very quick, and the middle linebackers used to hate because he used to love to hit those knees. But anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you for allowing us to have this great honor. I know it's not for us, it's for the Weslaco Panthers. Thank you.
All right, how about a big hand for all of our speakers here, bringing great joy and remembering Chip Vasquez once again. That concludes this portion of the ceremony. We're going to go outside for the unveiling and the naming of the Chip Vasquez Football Complex.
Hello again, everybody. This is Mike Gonzalez here at the Sepulveda Complex as we see the conclusion of the beginning of the dedication ceremony for Mr. Chip Vasquez. We're going to make our way outside for the unveiling of the Chip Vasquez Complex. Standing here with me is his father, Mr. Vasquez. Sir, thank you for joining us today, and just kind of tell us what are your thoughts of the ceremony up to this point?
Well, I think by the crowd, you can see the number of people that came, not only from here, from out of town. We're very appreciative and we're honored that they came to honor this momentous occasion.
So one of the things that we learned was that you guys came from Virginia. I don't think a lot of people know that, but tell me, where did the love of football come from? Where did it start? Did it start in Virginia? Did it start in Weslaco? Where did that come from?
It started in Virginia. Virginia, like Weslaco, did not have junior high football, so they had leagues according to pounds. And he started there, I think it was a 75-pound league. And then when we moved from, I was in the Army, so when we moved down to the valley, again, they had the Pee Wee football. We started that, the Weslaco Football League, we started it. And of course, Chip was one of the first to play in that league. So,
yeah, I think one of the things that they addressed was that the offensive line, the defensive line, they don't get a lot of love. But now an offensive lineman is going to get the recognition that they deserve, and it's here in Weslaco. So what does it mean to the family to have his name named here in Weslaco?
Well, I think it means a lot because, again, the offensive linemen, like Oscar mentioned, the only time they get recognized is when they go offsides or they're holding and they call the number. So everybody knew that guy did the violation. But they never get recognized when the running back makes 4 or 5 yards, the blocks that those guys did. Right. The effort that they put to get those 5 or 6 yards.
Yeah. He was a part of a team in 1987 that when the Weslaco Panther team made the playoffs for the first time in something like 18 or 19 years. And that was also the season that they played their games at Barbie Field for the last time. How happy was he that they were a part of history and that they were able to clinch a playoff spot, play Edinburgh here in the bi-district round? What do you remember and how proud was he?
I remember like it was yesterday because, first of all, the whole community got together and we got together on the Panther Drive outside the high school, and everybody was lined up when the buses came through, and they were ecstatic about that. Of course, I thought it was a bad call, but that's me, that a bad call that gave Edinburgh the touchdown. But if not, I think we would have won that game.
All right, well, Mr. Vasquez, we're going to let you go so that you can make your way outside as we're going to conclude the ceremony. But thank you so much for joining us and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir. All right, we're going to go ahead and make our way outside as you see the crowd here making their way. And some were taking pictures with Chip here. You see the beautiful frame picture of him and his number 60. He played center for the Weslaco Panthers, and you notice the helmets. That was the look back then. They had that Seattle Seahawks look, and as a kid growing up, I remember seeing that, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world to see Chip played center, offensive lineman, and again, part of the 1987 team that played Edinburgh Bobcats. Back then, the Bobcats were a traditional power in the 80s. They had some great football teams, and they came, I know we have a former player here, and they came to Weslaco to play in the bi-district game, and I remember from a personal experience, I was in 5th grade, and just how packed it was and just how excited the community was. And it turned out that that was the last game ever played at Barbie Field, and the score was a 13-6, so the Bobcats won that game. But it was the start of a great run for the Weslaco Panthers as they made the playoffs the next year in 1988. And just like one of the gentlemen said, the Panthers didn't have a stadium for a couple of years, and they had to play all their games on the road. And I know in '88 they had to play some of their games that were designated in Donna and had a lot of success there, and made the playoffs in 1988. By then, Chip was already at SMU as we make our way outside here. And it's a great, great morning for the community. How does it feel to be out here and giving this recognition to Chip Vasquez?
It's great. You know, actually, back in high school, you know, when you walk into those to the gym, and of course we'd be here a lot because I played basketball. I'd always go in and walk in, and you see the little that showcase, and I'd always saw he stood out because he had that SMU. You know, back then it was kind of like you just hear about Texas A&M and stuff. Always SMU. You know, and I asked one of the coaches, actually Coach Skinner. I go, hey Coach, who's that guy? He goes, man, that kid right there was a great guy, man. He was awesome. And I was like, oh, wow, cool. So I always have that memory of Chip just walking in, because that's the first thing you would see, that, you know, that showcase deal, right? You know, it's his picture, you know, with that SMU uniform. So I'm just so excited that we're going to honor him today, or that they are honoring today.
All right, Mayor. Well, enjoy the event, man, and thank you for joining us here as everybody's still making their way out. Chip Vasquez went to SMU in the late 80s, early 90s, and as I mentioned in the speeches, not only did he make an impact here in Weslaco, but at SMU, where he just kind of went in as a walk-in. He wanted to be a part of the team, and just hearing the speeches kind of reminded me of the movie Rudy. If you guys ever seen the movie Rudy, very similar to where, hey, I just want to be a part of the football team. He has a passion for the game. He didn't care if he played. He just wanted to make an impact, and everybody loved him. How's it going, Ms. Morales? You want to give us a few words? We are live. We're live on Facebook right now, and just kind of give us your thoughts on the ceremony. I know you were a graduate of 1989. You probably knew Chip, didn't you? You know, just what do you remember about him?
So what I remember about Chip is he was, during lunch, always walking around. He was always walking around. Like, most of us just sat, hung out, did homework. But he was that little social butterfly, and he was all over the cafeteria saying hi. He was either rallying for something, and right now when Dr. Rivera talked about that he wanted, you know, like, let's change the rules on dress code, let us wear shorts, he did. I remember, and that's probably what he was doing while he was walking around, like getting petitions signed or something, because I want to say we did get to wear shorts, or the boys did at least, back in the 88s or so. So that's what I remember. And a huge smile, like from one ear to the other, always, always. And, you know, you think about his name, Chip. And, you know, if you're chippy, if you're a chipper, you're always in such a good mood. And he had this huge, huge smile. The whole part about the fashionista, like he always had a polo shirt on, and it was a Ralph Lauren, and it was the fall. He was with the fall colors. And if it was in the spring, you were going to see him in aquas and pink and with the khaki shorts and the loafers. Like he looked like one of the characters from the Breakfast Club. I mean, he just, you know, it was the 80s. It was the 80s. And so just, I just remember that big smile, the way he would dress. And sometimes it was the polo shirts, but the long sleeve button down, like dress shirts. And yes, that was Chip Vasquez. That's what I remember from him, and just lots of smiles.
The football players are out here as well. from the freshman level, JV, and I believe the varsity as well. What do you hope they get out of this ceremony and just learning about Chip's story and his legacy?
I hope that they understand that what we're doing today is a testament of what your attitude can do if you have the right attitude. Because that was Chip Vasquez. He had the right attitude. It was a positive attitude and always just wanting to get in there. Even if he didn't fit in, he found a way to fit in. You know, at SMU, the coach is like, kiddo, this is a Division I, and he's like, hey, I'll walk in and I'll be a walk-on, I'll do the water, I'll do whatever you need for me to do. Like, he made himself available and always had a positive attitude. So my hope is that throughout this upcoming football season, that our boys focus on that and they think about that with the naming and dedication of Chip Vasquez.
How neat is it that we have the community out here? A lot of the members of the community, a lot of people came from out of town. The family is here. I mean, look at the crowd. And Coach Stroman is out here. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's beautiful. You know, we have people that came all the way from Dallas, from Austin. I just spoke to a lady who was in Miami, and she was stuck because there were no flights, so she drove. So she drove for 22 hours to get over here. Wow. And so, yeah, we have people from everywhere, all ages. Mr. Richard Vaughn, you know, he spoke for his son, James. It's been a beautiful day. It's also been a day back to bring me down memory lane.
Oh, wow.
Super sweet.
Awesome. And I think we're still a few minutes away from the beginning of the ceremony. I'm not sure if we're ready to go.
They're waiting for me because I'm the one that's going to lead it.
Okay. So how about if I hand you the mic, and then how about if you just take over? Are we ready to go now?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I know that earlier today, Dr. Rivera talked about Chip wanting to change the dress code. And I was thinking about that. I'm class of 89. Chip was class of 88. And I want to say Chip was doing what Mr. Vasquez was doing at the stadium a couple of years ago or last year. During lunch, Chip was always walking around. He never sat down. Most of us sat down, did homework, write letters to each other, right? Not Chip. Chip was walking around. And now I think I know what he was doing. He was probably petitioning and asking us like, hey, let's change the rules. And he did. And the fashionista part, oh my gosh, that was memory lane. I remember him, yes, polo shirts. And y'all, button down, long sleeve polo shirts with the khaki shorts. And I say the khaki shorts because I want to say, Dr. Rivera, you did change the rule because of Chip Vasquez. I remember him with loafers also. So we are so happy. We are so happy to be here today and to be able to honor him. And we hope that today's dedication of our football complex is a true testament and that we all remember of Chip Vasquez, his attitude. And our boys throughout this next season are going to carry on that legacy forever. So at this time, I'd like to ask our students to go ahead and unveil the new dedication ceremony for Chip Vasquez.
That's my freshman offensive line. Yeah, pull it, baby, pull it. If you need some help, I'll go help you.
Yes, we know what Chip is saying right now, that the letters should have been bigger. He's probably also saying the letters should have been purple. And that's exactly what our superintendent told us about a week ago. So we're going to take care of that. But at this time, we'd like to invite you all to come on in to the complex, take a tour, and we also have some refreshments. Once again, thank you so much for everybody being here today. God bless you.
Thank you.